Hello, welcome back to My Best Val. I'm your host, Diana Lanham, and my guest today is Corbie Mitleid. Corbie is a tarot master, a past life specialist, a psychic medium, and a channel. She's going to describe the difference between all of those psychic skills and also share her story of how she first discovered that she had the gift of intuition. So if you've ever been curious about what tarot is or what it's like to have a conversation with a psychic, this is the perfect episode for you. Enjoy. Corbie, I am so excited that you came all the way from New York to sit at my table and talk to us today.
I'm glad you asked.
Well, I remember when you and I first had our introductory chat, and you said, "Why you're looking for a psychic? Why did you call me?" Yeah.
And for 3,000 miles away.
I know, for 3,000 miles away. Well, because originally when I called you, we were just going to do an audio podcast. And then when I said you should go check out my web series, and you said, that looks fun. I think I want to do that. And so then you came out here, and now here you are. I know that you are a tarot master, a certified tarot master, but there is much more to you than that. You are also a past life specialist. You are a channel, a medium, and a psychic. And I want to actually start there because I don't know what the difference is between a psychic, a channel, and a medium. So can you explain that to us?
That's a very common thing. I'll go with the easy one first. Mediums, they talk to your dead Aunt Rose. They talk to dead people, specifically. Channels also get information from up there, but channels, that's your spirit guides, that's your angels, that's avatars. Channels get information that they could not know, and they tend to, it comes from literally a different channel, okay? Channels are not always trance channels where they're not here. Some of them, they just get the download and they're talking. Psychic is not so much a thing as what people do. That's why I explain all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. Psychics use sixth sense, the things that are not our usual five senses, to get information through ways that most people would go, how did you figure that out? It just, boom.
Psychic basically describes who you are and it's your title.
It's a skill.
Okay.
Everyone is psychic, but not everyone is a psychic, which is the fact that you have decided to take that work, put it out there and say, this is an integral part of who I am.
Well, when did you discover that? When did you know that you were a psychic?
Well, since I was 9, I was always the different one in my family. I mean, Dad was a cardiologist, Mom was an RN, my brother was science-based, ended up a doctor, different than my dad. He's a pulmonologist. But I was the one with the imagination. I was the one who wanted to be an actress. I was the one who wanted to write. So I was always looking for different ways of doing things. And when I was 9, I read a book called The Witch Family by Eleanor Estes, and I said, in there, that's what I want. Not to be a witch, but I wanted the magic that was happening. That was back in 1964. So the late 60s was Sybil Leek and the first real blooming of new witchcraft, new psychic work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In 1973 was Live and Let Die, which had Jane Seymour as Solitaire the Fortune Teller. And at that point, I was working part-time in Spencer Gifts, and they had the James Bond 007 tarot deck, and I bought it because we were all hippies. Yeah. You had your elephant bell-bottoms and your David Crosby fringe jacket and your deck.
Oh my God.
And so I read for friends. My family had no interest. They just thought it was, it's her crazy thing again. Yeah. But I loved the stories that the tarot would tell. And it was in me, I could see. I think in nuance, I talk in allegories, and when you do that, the cards are your best buddies.
Explain to me, I know what tarot is because I've had my cards read.
Sure.
But can you explain, because you just talked to us about being a medium, a channel, and psychic, can you talk to us about what's different about tarot?
Tarot, people are familiar with. They see it in a lot of B movies. And that was for a long time the only deck you really had. But what I loved was the stories it would tell. So, 5 years later, everybody else was onto roller skates and disco ball. I stuck with tarot because I could get out of the way and let the information flow through. Because when you do this, it's not just this card always means the same thing. When you really are familiar with the deck, you're using your psychic abilities, this card for me is the happy relocation, but it's not just about the house. It's about in life, moving in, moving on, moving up, moving out. And so when you've read as long as I have, and you understand the nuance, the storyline just comes through. You don't worry if you're going to say something different. And what your background and personality is will inform the cards. This one, Prince of Swords. That is a card that talks about high stress, but going after what you want. But I grew up outside Philly, so for me, that's the archetypal Italian guy. Jealous, possessive, wants what he wants, when he wants it, doesn't care whose blood's on the sword. So that's why, while I will give you the correct meaning of the card, it'll have nuance, it'll have flavor, it'll have color because of how I grew up, who I knew. It's an art. It's not just tab A into slot B.
Yeah. So what was it like for you when you realized that you had a gift for this? I mean, there had to be, when you first started reading and you read the book, you figured out what they meant.
I didn't consider it a gift. It was fun.
I know,
They're
but
my
when did
buddies.
it, but there had to be a moment where, when you said the stories just come through and you're just channeling, there had to be a moment when that was just, when you became, you fully owned being into it.
That happened in the early 90s when all of a sudden, with no training, I could do hands-on healing and talk to dead people. Because that was the universe handing me my draft notice and saying,
This
greetings.
is who you are.
No, greetings, we're drafting you. But when you put your hand on that and you say, okay, you're giving the folks upstairs, however you see them, the opportunity to rifle on your insides like an old-fashioned file cabinet to see what you have. That's what determines what you're good at. With me, look, I was an actress. I understand characters, story arcs. I'm a writer, so I can tell the stories. I've loved history since I was a wee thing in single digits. That's why I'm good with past lives. But there are things I don't do. You know, I jokingly say, don't ask me to do spirit art because I can't draw a stick figure with a sharp pencil and a loud prayer. Not my wheelhouse. Don't use a pendulum. Why? Because I have a slight benign tremor in one hand. I'm not sure I'm getting the real stuff. So when you find what sings to you, what you love, and what you're good at, that's where you concentrate. So when I was told, you know, you're going to be doing this out in the world, these were the things that I was good at. Past lives, tarot, later oracle cards, which are kind of a new invention over the past 30 years. You're making a face at me. Let me explain what they are.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I thought that it was basically all tarot,
No.
Yeah.
Tarot has had rules for centuries. There are 78 cards. You have 22 majors, 4 suits. Each suit has 14 cards. This has devolved to our standard deck. That's why you see gypsies reading with a standard playing deck, because you have 4 suits in here. Wands, which has been translated to clubs. Cups, which are now hearts. Swords, which are now spades. And pentacles, which are now diamonds.
Oh, interesting.
So, and while here you have page, knight, queen, king. Now we just have jack, queen, king.
Wait. So playing cards today are an evolution
Of tarot
Of
cards.
tarot.
Yes.
I never knew that. That's interesting.
These are totally different. There are no rules for oracle decks. I mean, look, this one is Osho Zen. This one is Spirit of the Wheel. Clearly, there are different numbers. There are no suits. It is the invention and passion of the artist, which is why when I use oracle decks, they each have their own purpose, and they tell me what that is. The first oracle deck I ever got was Fairies Oracle. That's by Brian Froud, if you remember Labyrinth and Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
Puppetry stuff. But these are not your ootsy-cootsy fairies. These are the Celtic Wild Hunt. These are the Sidhe. And this is a deck that I pull out when someone is doing some serious spiritual digging. This is my situation. I know I need to fix it. What do I do? Now, when people look at me and go, they're scary. I went to angels. Yes, I have an angel deck. Right there. When someone asks the inevitable question, does Bruce love me, or where the hell is he? This deck is by John Gray, the guy who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. That is specifically relation and karma. This deck, which is Ganesh, familiar with Ganesh. For those who aren't, everybody in India has a Ganesh. The American equivalent is if you go to South Philly, the little Italian-American grandmother has the peeling statue of the Virgin Mary in back by the barbecue. I mean, it's that ubiquitous.
Yeah.
It's a very compassionate deck. This deck gives you a storyline for how the year is going to go. This one helps you figure out what you came here to do. That's Spirit of the Wheel. And Osho Zen is very much philosophy behind what's going on. So I won't use every single deck when I read for you. This is your everyday tour bus. Tarot is house, car, job, kids, finances. Okay, gotcha, put me here. What the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
But if you have other specific questions, I will look over and I'll literally see, bink, bink, us, play with us, and I'll grab the deck.
Really?
Oh yeah, you will find the cards become your buddies. Now this is not, are they sentient? No, they are just ink on paper. There is nothing scary about them. It's not like a Ouija board. Ouija boards do.
No,
But
freak me
no.
out.
Ouija boards.
I don't even want to talk about them. They freak me out so much.
Thank you. This is good.
Yeah.
Using them when you don't know how to ground, center, and shield is like throwing open your door in a strange neighborhood and yelling
100%.
free
When
beer.
people say, "Oh, their kids are, playing," they found a Ouija board. I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like, I can't even think about it.
It's I have to say, when I lecture at expos and people want to know about Ouija boards and they don't get it because they say it's in the toy department, I go, okay, who here has a kid, grandchild under 10? Hands go up. Okay, you, how old? 8. What's the kid's name? Josh. Okay, Joshy comes to you and says, Grandma, I got all A's on my report card. Let's go to get a toy you promised. And he takes you into the toy department and shows you a box that says, my first chainsaw. Are you going to let him play with it by himself? No. Yeah.
You had talked about you don't do past life regression, you do past life retrieval. I'm fascinated by that. Talk about that.
Massive difference. And it's a safety factor. When you do past life regression, it must only be done by a certified hypnotherapist or past life regressionist because they are putting you into trance and they're sending you up to the Akashic. You're not trained. You don't know what you're going to see up there. If you see a previous death of yours that was traumatic, if you see something like torture and war or gang, something like that, they will be able to pull you out just enough so that you can observe it but not relive it. But some people don't, either they can't be hypnotized, they're too scared, or they don't want to get that close. So they come to me and I say it's an obsession, a phobia, a person or place. Obsession might be, why do I love Victorian China? The phobia might be, why am I afraid of oatmeal? And the person or place is, I'm Scots-Irish, why do I have this thing about Peru? I have the ability, and don't ask me how I got it, it's just, they flip the switch, of being able to go up to the Akashic, figure out the life that you need to see, and I bring it down and say, here, read chapter 2. Quick examples. When I was lecturing at Lily Dale, which is a very famous spiritual place in New York, a woman raised her hand and said, why am I so afraid of having wet hair in my face? And her hair was put short. And I said, okay, and I closed my eyes, and within about 15 seconds, I said, okay, 1915, 5-syllable answer, Lusitania, you were on the boat when it was torpedoed by the Germans, you went over the side. You had not bobbed your hair. You still had the big Edwardian mass, which took on a lot of water, and also debris caught in it, pulled you down, and you drowned. And I opened my eyes, because I usually say this, eyes closed, and she says, is that why I'm afraid to go on a ship? I said, probably. Notice she hadn't even mentioned that.
Yeah. When did you decide that this was going to be your life? Like you had gone far enough into it, and you had got the flip had been switched. When did you decide? Like, how old were when you?
The flip had been switched.
The flip had been switched. The flip had been switched. The switch had been flipped. Thank you. I didn't even notice. When did you realize that I've got this? This is who I am, and this is what I'm going to do.
Well, I started it professionally part-time in '94, but my background has been very checkered. Actress, author, inspirational speaker, video producer, legal assistant, executive recruiter, writer for our graphic novel series ElfQuest. But the psychic work was always on the side. It's what I loved. It became full-time on 9/11 as we watched the towers burn. I turned to Carl, my husband, and I said, I'm going to need to do this full-time. People need to know there are other answers out there. And he looked at me and he said exactly what's inside my wedding ring. I believe in you. Go do it. So for one more year, I worked corporate to make sure, and doing evenings and weekends psychic work, that I could make some kind of a living. And I worked my tail off for years, every show I could do, so that I got really good at what I did. I became confident about what I did. And within 5, 6, 7 years, I was what I call an A-lister. No matter how busy or non-busy a show was, I always had people coming to me for readings.
Yeah.
I was able to be on the road for 45 weekends a year. My nickname was the Travel Channel. But I kept getting the nudge from upstairs, we'd like you to stay home. Home is where you need to be. And I kept saying, no, no, no. I love being a Hilton Diamond, the we're no worthy when I walk in. It's great.
Yeah.
So upstairs said, all right, we're going to take care of matters as they do. And in July of 19, all of a sudden, out of the blue, I got a herniated disc and pinched nerve. It took me about 3 to 4 months to be, mostly normal. But
you were home.
No, more than that. The doctor said, we're sorry, but your business is toast. You can no longer do the 10-hour drives, and you can no longer do the load in and the load out. Your back can't take it. So I scrambled to get my business completely online, Zoom, Skype, phone, at home. And it finished up getting settled about January of 2020. What happened 2 months later but the years of murder hornet bingo and hold my beer, COVID? People that I know who were just on circuit, business tanked. Mine went like this. I have no desire to go back on the road. I do a couple of local shows, one-day shows, because they're fun. But when the universe wants you to do something, you either listen or they will hit you upside the head lovingly with as many clue bricks as you need.
Until you learn the lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's why I did the cancer dance for 3 times. Notice, I don't say I fought cancer, because what you fight fights back. And I don't say that I beat cancer. I'm a cancer dancer. I find out how graceful I can be under pressure, avoided getting my toe stepped on, and got off the dance floor in one piece.
So you've had cancer 3 times?
Yep.
Wow.
First one was in 1989 when I was acting in New York. Ductal carcinoma in situ. The lumpectomies and radiation were all I needed. My third bout of cancer, the second one was just skin cancer from the radiation, was the second primary. And that turns the danger clock back to 0. But the doctors at Mass General said, sorry, 3 strikes, you're out. We're taking the rack, we're taking your ovaries, and you're going from this Dolly Parton figure to a fat fire plug with permanent side effects. And we're really going to damage you internally. Probably won't ever have sex again. Suck it up. I had just been married for 18 months. Now, did I go home and cry? Yes. But I knew I had to find 3 reasons to be okay with it to get through it. I didn't care how stupid they were. Number 1, you don't have them. You can't get cancer there. Number 2, the top half was not going to get slammed in the refrigerator door at the doctor's, and every woman knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
3, implants. I'm going to be perky till I'm 93, and this is 70. 20 years later, this is what it is. But this is because I did the cancer dance. I didn't think of myself as, oh, this poor child.
Yeah, as a victim. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, going back to, you mentioned Carl.
Yep.
And Carl is your husband
Yes.
now, right?
I know, I get 16 years old when you say Carl.
I know,
like,
your
yeah.
face totally changed. That's a great
Yes.
smile. So, but you've been married before.
Twice.
So this is your third marriage.
3 times the charm, thank God.
Okay. So, as a psychic, did you not see those marriages coming and going?
A psychic does not always know their own life. It doesn't give you a pass from life. We all come down here with a soul plan. What do we want to learn in this life? All right? And karma is not bad and good. That's the kindergarten version. Karma is 5 things: healing, service, contrast, unbalanced energy, and healing of beliefs. So most of my lives, I've been male, 80-20. It's why I kid around and say that I'm a guy in a girl suit this time. Not that I have any interest in trans, but I don't play girl games. My husband and I go into the restrooms at a restaurant and we both come out at the same time. I'm not fluffing and buffing. And like I said, bullshit tolerance meter at featherweight. My tough lives are my female lives. There was a tipping point when I was 16. My mother, whose soul is wonderful, as nobody has a bad soul. But the parts that she agreed to play was, she was an alcoholic cross-addicted with barbiturates, who had a lot of self-loathing. And there I was with a Dolly Parton figure at 16. An incident happened where she found birth control in my dresser drawer. Hadn't used it. I was still pure as a driven snow, but me and my high school buddies, we got it from the drugstore because we wanted to figure out what this was, and we accidentally sprayed one on the wall, cleaned it up, oops. So she saw it and one was missing. And I hear her yell my name in her drunken slur, and I come upstairs, and she had pulled all the clothes out of my closet, and 5 of my 6 dresser drawers were smashed on the ground, and she pulled out one drawer, held this up and said, "What's this, whore?" and proceeded to tell me what I was worth, which was never going to be married. Guys would just use me, that's et cetera, et cetera. And that was a karmic tipping point. I often say when we get to those points, we can either, like in college, do a gut course or double major plus lab. Gut course would have been, I'll show you, stayed a virgin until I was married, got married, that was it. Instead, I believed everything she said about me. And for the next 30 years, I thought I was not allowed to say no, no matter who wanted what, that all I was worth was what I looked like. Spirit knew that I had lots of work to do down here as a teacher, counselor. So that's why the cancer was happening. But I wasn't dying from it. My sense was the 3rd time, Spirit said, "Look, we need you down there for a long time. You're not getting over this. We're going to remove the problem." Which is why the rack went, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
The first husband, I left less than a year when he started throwing me against a wall. The second husband, we had been friends for 12 years. So we figured we can get married, we'll be friends. And we were living in New York at the time, but he didn't like it. He wanted California. I said, no. 4 seasons, fire, flood, earthquake, mudslide. I'm not going there. So we settled on Atlanta. I am not a magnolia, I'm a bagel, baby. And so when he decided that he wasn't happy there, he just said, I'm leaving. You're not invited to California. I don't like sharing my money. That's it. He was not a magnolia. He was a surfboard. He went back to California. So I figured that I was unmarryable, that it was always my fault. And when I met Carl, we figured it was just going to be fun. This was in the early to mid 90s. I was in Atlanta still. He was upstate New York. We dated for a year and then broke up. 6 years later, I moved back up to the Hudson Valley. He had gotten a job in an 8-building Revolutionary War site, and he is a historian and a good one. So he heard my name on our local NPR station's pledge drive. Called me up. Second date, we knew this was it. And that was it. And we met at the old Rhinebeck Aerodrome. I went there with my second husband. And I knew nothing about World War I. terrified of Germans because my father had been in World War II. Nothing. And we watched, and it was like, yeah, Italian planes, French planes, British planes, American planes, right. All of a sudden, there was this Albatross D5A, followed by a Fokker triplane. That's the Snoopy and the Red Baron plane. Mm. And as I watched them fly, there was this soundless explosion in my head. And two things. There's a story behind that, and I flew that one. Overnight, without my tweaking about it, I had to learn German. I needed to know about the pilots. I had to know about World War I. It had flipped a switch. So that's when I picked up the past life that has affected me most. But it's also what attracted Carl to me. As he often says, there was this gorgeous brunette who knew the difference between a Fokker DR1 and an F1 based on the wing skids. I had to marry her.
Oh, that's awesome.
Carl came in because he's one of the only guys I've ever known who had a normal, good childhood growing up. He understood that marriage is a work in progress. It's not all about who you are. And, he'll never jet me to Paris or buy me 24 roses. But he rubs my back when it hurts. He cleans the cat box. Right now, while I'm here, he's home fixing the plumbing and redoing the paneling in the house. He uses for me 4 words that for me trump 3 words. I believe in you, for me trumps I love you. Because you can love someone and not believe in them, but when you believe in them, you absolutely love them. He is a realist when it comes to marriage, and realism is not boring. It is long-term. It is you marry what's behind the eyes. It's not just the looks. And these days, that's hard to find.
Yeah, that's so true. How long have you guys been together?
Re-met in 2000, lived together starting 2001, got married in 2002.
Wow. I was thinking about this when you were telling me your story about when you bought the deck of cards, the James Bond deck of cards.
Yes.
Do you think that if you had not seen that James Bond, seen Jane Seymour with her deck of cards, do you think that you would have found this calling?
I would have been lost. I would have still tried to be an actress. When I was acting in New York and built the way I was, they said, I'm sorry, we can't use you, which is why I ended up doing a lot of voiceovers, because no one sees you, and the voice can be anybody.
Yeah.
I have no idea what my life would have been like. This was fitting a round peg in a round hole. I was a square peg. Everyone wanted me to be in a round hole.
Yeah.
So, and I would have constantly tried to figure out who I was, been miserable, thought I was worthless. Now, your ego has to get out of the way when you read.
Yeah.
Because you're the vessel it comes through. We're the tool. We are not the repairman. It doesn't, I very often use the phrase, it doesn't mean my aura don't stink.
Yeah.
But it's work on love. And because I have been through cancer, divorce, poverty, rape, abuse, there's nothing a client can come to me with that I haven't seen. So the compassion is always there.
Do you feel that you have overcome your mother's judgment? Does it
And long ago forgiven her. If she had not done that, I don't know who I'd be. I needed the adversity to do this. Next time, I hope it's easier, but nothing was oh poor me in this lifetime.
Have you connected with your mother?
Maybe once or twice. She died in 1984, 40 years now. And I hope that she is off having a much better life. Dad, on the other hand, was my best friend. Yeah. If you read my book, Clean Out Your Life Closet, it's dedicated to him, and there's a picture of us in the front. He understood me better than other people in the family at that point. When I do the occasional medical intuitive stuff, Dad was a cardiologist, he'll come in. Yeah. But it's always good to have someone who gets you. The other one who really got me was my wonderful stepmother, Shirley. After Mom died, Dad married Shirley a year later, and Shirley was as different from my mother as possibly could be. Mom was a nurse. Her parents were German, Russian, Jewish immigrants who barely spoke English. They ran a little grocery store. She was smart, but not educated. And Dad was a genius. He was. Lehigh, Hopkins, fabulous doctor. And my brother is world famous, cystic fibrosis and asthma. And my mother felt drowning in inadequacy the entire time that she was alive. So I want good things for her, but she's off doing her thing. I connect with Dad. Occasionally I'll feel Shirley. But I'm living me now.
Yeah.
You know, we're clear. We've done what we need to do.
You're so multifaceted. You've done so many things. And you've written several books, right? You're an author, published author. Reverend Corbie Mitleid.
Yep.
Also, you've done stand-up. How was that?
I have so many stories. They see Madame Rosa in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and they think we're all like that. Psychics are different, like doctors are different. We each have, if you will, a bedside manner. Some people, like the ones that say, I'm scared, I want the angels, they'll go to Little Dancing Raccoon.
Yeah.
Me, I'll hit you upside the head with a clue, Rick, but you will laugh. I will give you details. Here are your opportunities and how to grab them. Here's the tough stuff. Here's how to get through it and around it. Here's your toolbox, rock and roll. I want you to leave my deck empowered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Empowered.
I prefer that. That's the style that I like. I went to see, I had my tarot cards read once where I was in love and I wanted to find out, yeah, I was in love, but it was, you know, it was complex. And so I wanted to know if I was on the right path. And she's like, yeah, we're not talking about that. I was like, why? And she goes, see these cards? We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what these cards mean. And it was surprising. I was like, oh, whatever. And it was surprising. And she was very direct about what it was. And all of it was spot on. All of it. And like she assumed that card, the reason I went in there, that went on the wayside too and stuff. And the very first time I had my tarot cards read, I was 19. And I was there for a very specific reason too. And then she was basically like, why you're here is not going to happen, but I'm going to tell you about all this other stuff. And I remember that, and I remember her because everything she said was true. But not everything she said was what I wanted to hear, right? But that's what convinced me about tarot when I realized, yeah, it's all about the cards I choose and I touch, and you just tell me from what you're feeling about how it relates to me. Other
Except
people
you don't touch the cards with me.
Oh, really?
Nope.
Oh.
Nope.
Well, should we see it?
Sure, I'll show you.
All right.
All right. So, when someone sits with me, the first thing I say to them is, what is the most important thing you want to get out of here knowing? Because if you just say, I don't know, tell me anything, I'm sorry, you're not really interested.
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah.
So.
Well, can I whisper it to you? Since we have people here?
I think we talked about it earlier. So with you, it's the everyday tour bus. House, car, job, kids, finances. Okay, God, you put me here.
Okay.
What the hell?
Okay.
And the first thing that I always do for that is Celtic Cross, which is the standard 10 cards that you see in all the B movies.
Okay.
So to start, 3 piles. Get there. Which pile you want?
The center one.
Done.
Okay.
Okay. Now, first thing I always look for are the major arcana. They're the ones with the Roman numerals and the names at the bottom. It's the concentrated God energy in the deck. Statistical average would be 2. You have 78 cards, 22 majors, 2. You have 1, 2, 3. When you have more than average, that's God playing in your sandbox, nudging you in certain directions. And whether he sends you diamonds or stinky fish, your job is to go. All right, fine. Now, the suits. Remember I told you there are 4 suits.
Yeah.
You have, I should put on my glasses. I know the cards, but it's easier when you can see them. You've got 1 wand. Wands are, no, 2, I lied. Creativity, power, passion, and drive, which you put out to the world to go, this is Miss D, take it or leave it. You've got 1, 2 cups. Cups are relationships, but that's anything that goes human heart to human heart, family, friends, work, community, not just partners. You've got 1, 2, 3 swords. Swords are challenges, speed bumps, crud, and the mental work to deal with it. Now notice what you don't have any of right off the bat. You don't have any pentacles. Pentacles are about material goods, house, car stuff. So when you don't have any in the first 10, the cards are saying we want to discuss the intangibles of the world with you first. So I start with the sun rises. So where you are right now is in a good position, and over it is the Two of Wands. And the Two of Wands is a card that is not quite your ship is coming in successful, but if you look at the cards, you'll see they are coming into port. They're just not here yet. So whatever it is that you really want to get done, you're almost there. But this is the key card. What is it? You have to be in love with what you do. You cannot do it because you think you should, because you are expected to, because you're doing it for anyone else. It has to come full blown from you. This is who I am, and it's what I'm meant to do. In the past, the Five of Swords card is what I call the bitchcraft card. It's where people manipulate their arguments. It's, mean girls, Heathers, jealousy, things like that. But that's behind you. It has still affected you because the next 9 months, take a look at the Two of Swords card. She's sitting there, she's like this, she's blindfolded, and what she's basically saying is, no matter what I do, I'm going to cut my own throat. Somebody else tell me what to do. No, darling, you have to make some decisions. You can't, in the next 9 months, sit on the fence. You have to see where you're going to go. You, the Justice card. Now, that has a couple of meanings. It is life must be balanced. It has to be just for everybody that you work with. If in your business you have contracts, you have legal papers, etc., you've got to make sure they're buttoned up tight because around you is the card for judgment. Paradigm shift, call to new life. And you're not going to be able to get that new life unless you make sure that the legalities are solid. You don't need pains in the butt. What you think about in the middle of the night, the Six of Cups card is child energy. Now, this is not about your kid. This is, am I still a kid at this? Is someone going to view me as a kid, not as good as I really am? How do I show them that I am at the top of my game? Now, in order for you to make that happen, last 2 cards for the 18 months. The Six of Swords card, here's your allegory. In order to go from the rough waters to the smooth, the woman in the boat mourns because she had to leave a lot of things on the dock that told her who she used to be or the boat wouldn't float. Next to it is the Nine of Wands, the been there, done that, sold the franchise card. Putting those two together, what I would tell you is there are some old ideas you need to ditch, like maybe I haven't done it long enough. You need to totally absorb what your expertise is, that you've already earned it. Stop thinking that you're not at the top of your game. And if anybody else treats you like that, I want you to use my favorite 2 magic phrases, which is, thank you for sharing. You may think that if you wish, then you go do what the hell you need to do. Does this make sense to you? Mm-hmm. This is not fortune telling. This is intuitive consulting.
Yeah. This whole thing was the question that I would have asked you. Uh-huh. That's very interesting.
What do I do for a living?
I know. Just was checking.
Yep.
Just wanted to see. No.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I have any other questions. I mostly just wanted you here so I could have you read my cards. No, I'm kidding. That's not true. I had had a conversation with somebody about actually tarot cards where they thought it was all, hook'em and, hocus pocus and stuff. And I thought, I think it'd be really interesting to have people see what, again, my focus was tarot, how not scary it was. Like we're not sitting in a tent, it's not dark and you don't have all these scary cards and you're saying this is the death card and all that stuff. That it's actually...
You have a family curse. How many in your family? You have 4, you have dogs? No, we don't do that here.
So that was part of it too. It's like, I think I want to show that to people that are interested in it or are on the fence or people who are afraid of it, that it's all about you projecting something to the intuit, and they say, these are what the cards are saying about you. This is not what I'm thinking. This is what the cards are telling me as an intuit about your question.
Before we end, I want to show you how oracle cards will work for the same thing.
Okay.
Remember, these are my fairies oracles, so they are going to Hit you upside the head. Oop. Behave. Okay. The first card is called the Trickster. If you remember your fairy tales, there was always that little light at the end of the forest, and the big stupid human would go galumphing and lost. Well, these are the cards that are saying, darling, it's so good to see you. Grab your beer and sit down. We want to talk to you. It's what's bringing you into the challenge. And the challenge for you is the soul shrinker.
That's a very scary card.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you why. It's one of my favorites. The legend is he was a very handsome fairy, but he took on a tough job. And when people are altruistic, kind, help others, he gets more beautiful. But when people are cruel, step on each other, the world gets dark, he gets uglier. There's a tear here. He wants things to be better. So for me, I would say that this is part of how you need to work in the world. What can you make better and why? And then we see how you do it. The next card is the mask and shadow. We all wear masks, facets of our personality, and sometimes one gets stuck and becomes an excuse. Whatever this quality is, you overuse it. You need to revise it, revamp it, or dump it. Mick the Meomancer. Meomancy in fairydom is mice. Too many details stop you. Details sometimes are not as good as just broad brush. So they're taking this from you. This is called the offering card. Whenever you play with the fairies, they always want something. So whatever that is, they're filching it from your pocket and making for the highway with it, kiss it goodbye. He of the fiery sword. That's the logic stuff. That's cutting right down the middle. Good, bad, truth, bull, keep it, dump it. Instead, they want you to go here. And that's honesty.
These cards are scary looking. I'm just saying.
But they're not. You see, they're scary looking because they don't look human. But they are spirit. And he has sweet brown eyes. He's just looking at you. He says, you don't have to worry about making it perfect. It just has to be honest. What you film, what you say, how you think. Okay? Now, this is the card that I normally tell people, write this down because I'll channel it and I will not remember what I'm telling you. But this is the questions that the fairies want to ask you, and you go home and it's homework. The fairy godmother. How do you want to be a fairy godmother in the world? How do you choose who's going to benefit from the fairy godmother? And when do you have the courage to step back and let someone find themselves without the fairy godmother's help?
That's a tough one.
This is the fairy that'll help you with that, and that makes sense. Lisa the Shadows has a very particular job. She's the one that reaches out when nobody else will. She reaches for the suicidals, the drunks, the despairing, the people living in boxes under bridges, and says, I see you and I can pull you out. So working with her, you have to see how often you do that and when you have to let go. This is the card that will tell you you've mastered this challenge when this is how the world looks to you. Iris of the Rainbows, the one that always has hope, that always maintains there's sun after rain. She's the one that carries her scepter and the rainbow. So all of this talks about very much why you do the work you do and how to work with it to tell the most true stories, the most honest stories that don't rip up your guts. And you have to accept that you can't save everyone. You can't always make it better. Very different from tarot, but just as useful.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, this is very much the inner workings of Diana. This whole, it seems like the deck is. And the other one is basically, moving through the world around you.
That's why I call tarot the everyday tour bus, and these guys go deeper.
Yeah. I love that. It's fascinating. And I don't have to worry about remembering any of this because we're filming it.
Normally, when you sit and have a reading with me and we're not filming, I tell you, record it on your phone.
Yeah.
Because I will talk so fast you won't remember everything.
Yeah. And you think you're going to
notes.
remember and then you leave and you don't. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
The only
right.
thing you leave with is like, did she tell me Bruce is going to fall in love with me or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Corbie, thank you so much for being here. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. And
It was fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So thank you.
You are welcome.
Would you like to be a guest on our show? If you have a story to tell, send us an email at contact@mybestfell.tv. If we think it's a good fit, we'll reach out. Today's episode of My Best Fell was created by Director of Photography, Aaron Castillo, Sound, Brian Binning, Gaffer, Billy Miller, Makeup, Lindsay Watkins, and Catering by Sarah Bailey.